Well,
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this meeting of the Sorell Council, Tuesday, 17th of June, 2025. I have a meeting open at 6 o'clock p.m. I'd like to begin by paying respect to the traditional and original owners of this land, the Mumarina people, to pay respect to those that have passed before us and to acknowledge today's Tasmanian Aboriginal community who are the custodians of this land. Thank everyone in attendance for this meeting. Are there any apologies?
Chair, one from the Gatehouse is unwell, Councillor Reynolds is unwell, and Councillor Campbell's an apology.
Thank you. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? Do any councillors have or expect to have a pecuniary interest in any item on tonight's agenda? You? We move to 6. Initially, the Mayor's report. The Mayor's report communication report be listed as received. There's no point.
Sorry, Chair, we missed number 5.
Oh, sorry. Back on train on wheels. The minutes, the recommendation 5 is that the minutes of the council meeting held on the 20th of May 2025 be confirmed. Can I have a move and a second of the motion? Councillor Turinius and Councillor Nichols. Thank you. Are there any questions or amendments on that? With the motion to vote, all those in favour? It's unanimous. Now back to the Mayor's report. Well, given that the Mayor isn't here, shall we hold that in abeyance? Would that seem sensible for everyone?
I'd say the circumstance, that's fine.
No disagreement with that. We shall move on to supplementary items. 7. The supplementary item is tabled for inclusion in this agenda, which requires consent of the meeting as the item is required to be considered prior to the next ordinary meeting. The recommendation is that the council resolve by absolute majority to deal with any supplementary items not appearing in the agenda as reported by the General Manager in accordance with the Local Government Meetings Procedures Regulation 2015.
So we do have one.
And can we, what is that one?
So Chair, we need a mover and a second to accept.
Yes, can I have a move on a second, please? Councillor Larkins and sorry, who else moved that? Oh, Councillor Reid, yes, sir. I need glasses to see this. You're all no, it's a nuisance. I used to be the other way around.
So we get that to the vote. Accept that.
Yeah.
Supplementary item.
Yes, all those in favour? Pass unanimously. The Council Workshops report, item 8, to be noted. So the recommendation is that the workshop reports as listed be received. Can I have a mover and a second of that? Councillor Larkin, Councillor Nichols, yes, sorry. I know everybody's name.
First names are easy.
Are there any questions or comments to be debated on this item? Well, if there's no further discussion, I'll put the motion to vote. All those in favour?
Is this
This is 11.
through the chair? Is this the work report?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, just a couple of questions if that's.
Sorry, what?
So,
This is normally where we have questions about the work of the council, so, just the general managers, starting with the general managers meetings, particularly the, meeting with the Office of the Barrier General and the meeting with Mr. Vincent. If there's anything that can be, things significant for council over those.
Through the chair, the meeting with the Barrier General was to be briefed from them and the contract valuers on the results of the full reval. So they provided a summary of the changes to land value, capital value and AAV by category, not only against the last full valuation, but also since the last adjustment period. And they also broke down by locality for each of those three, being land, capital and AAV. So it was interesting to hear the results. Just a tick over 10,000 properties were valued. But just probably won't come as a surprise that those had increased. So just as a comparison, pretty coarse comparison from the last full reval to this one. So it doesn't take into account any adjustment factors that we had over that time. But residential AAV has gone up 93%, commercial 36, industrial 83, primary production 124, community 90 and others 139%. So as a total, 91% increase in AAVs since over an 8-year period because our reval was pushed back. So the so I'm just trying to find the right. So since more relevantly since the last adjustment factor we had, the change in AAV is residential is 28% higher, commercial 4% higher, industrial 40, primary production 12, community services 47, and others 84. So on total, that's an average of 26% increase. So it's interesting that, and I didn't think it was the case, but they actually do assess every single property. So it's not just a desktop exercise, actually out driving around as well. So it's a useful briefing. This is for acting finance manager myself and senior great officer. If councillors wish, I can forward the PowerPoint presentation from this. Another question, sorry, Councillor Ed, was the meeting with Minister Vincent. Just a catch-up, really, requested by him for the Mayor and I. Some feedback from him as to his thoughts on how Sorell is considered at the state level. Just a bit of an update for us for what other councils are doing around the state in terms of their engagement with state government, and particularly with the last election, which is going to be another election. And just an update on some projects as well for this part of the world. So, Minister Vincent is still the same person.
yes, not in contest. Is there any further discussion?
Thank you, Chair. Through the Chair to you, Stevens. Your meeting with KPMG, the Tasman Mayor and Oliver Strickland around the draft strategic planning for CERTA. What was the outcome for CERTA there?
Well, through the Chair, So we had the strategic planning workshop. I can't remember what it was now. It was only a week or so prior to that. It was in May. And it was to try and, I guess, corral thoughts from that workshop into what's going to be the bones of the new strategic plan, if you like, for services. We've gone through a few peaks and troughs and iterations with different mayors and people around the table, and it's probably not as front of mind as what it was with state and federal politicians. So it's a case of, are we going to continue on, achieve really good things, relevant things in the last 10 years? So if we are, how are we going to set ourselves up to get back to where we were? But it hasn't landed yet, but I expect it won't be far away at all.
Any further discussion?
Just
Councillor
one
Nichols.
question through the chair to the general manager. Two things, updates on the Blue Lagoon outfall and the Dodgers Ferry Pool project, how they're both progressing.
Through the chair, we had a meeting with the consultants at Blue Lagoon a week or so ago, where they're now at the point of providing some cost estimates for the two options, the two northern options. It was probably the most useful meeting we've had in a long time, because they've done more work on determining levels and just how it would be achieved with both options. And it's at the stage where we think I guess the first iteration we thought we would pursue to get water to the north, to the boat ramp, is probably the more feasible of the two options they've been researching and costing. So now it's a case of I guess confirming the assumptions that provided cost estimates for both options, and our staff now just, I guess, checking to see how accurate their cost estimates are. But the cheaper of the two options was in the vicinity of, it was over $300,000, and the other option was, I wouldn't say double, but certainly a fair bit higher than that.
Does that include any kind of filtration?
It does, but the first option, which is sort of to effectively put a fairly large table drain along Canard Street toward the playground, and then have a pipe from there. So the answer is yes, but the table drain itself would provide some of that service, but there'd be one toward the outlet as well.
Yeah. Okay.
It was just useful to go through some of the risks associated with what I mentioned last time around the potential for a really high tide event that you can't get the flow out, but
Yeah.
we've sort of worked out that the likelihood of that happening is incredibly small.
Yeah.
And then when it does happen, it's only going to be for a short period of time, and it might be an issue. But I feel like we're making progress there now. It's a case of the cost.
Yeah, okay. Right, and the pool, I noticed that Director Service Delivery had a meeting about the pool, I think it was that one.
Yeah, there's a few moving parts to not so much the pool development, because that's been approved, but the lack of stormwater infrastructure in that area. So
Yeah, okay.
that site needs to deal with it. There's no roadside drainage on that side of Fawcett Road, and there's a proposed developments come in for land directly to the south of the pool.
Right, on the corner.
Yeah, part of that property.
Yeah, okay.
And we just got to work out an approach that's going to suit all. So that's being worked through now. We're trying to do it in a way that's going to protect the existing tree of ours. It's just on the other side of the boundary. It's not going to be that simple, but I guess we haven't had a need to turn our minds to how to deal with stormwater, because we haven't had any issues there until now.
Yeah.
So it's sort of exacerbated the need to consider it and deal with it.
Right, thank you.
Questions? Councillor Crusader?
Yes, thank you. Question for the general manager and Mr. Higgins. Just following up on the Blue Lagoon, I couldn't hear very well. The two outfall options being investigated are both towards the boat ramps.
Yep. Yeah.
So just looking at so trying to find the best option for that outfall.
Yeah, the one I mentioned, which is sort of Canal Street, adjacent to the park and underneath the car park out.
Mhm.
The other one's over more towards trying to intercept water before it gets into the lagoon over in the vicinity of the ambulance station, that junction there, and running it around the reserve that goes parallel with Tiny Head Road. And that way, that's,
Is that the most expensive?
yeah, just a lot longer series of works as a total distance. So we're a lot more comfortable with the other option.
Thank you.
Any further questions?
Just one
Councillor Jones.
for Greg. The container refund scheme, have you had any complaints about, I saw something on social media, so I will ask about boxes that people bring their containers in to go, are now being dumped on the trolley bay? Have you?
I mean, I used the facility. It happened one day, for my answer to the question, and that in and around certainly the Sorell one, which I've used, the third one, they have had issues with dumping there, but they do have regular cleaning. So I think it was a bit of a surprise to them that would attract it. And I said, well, this is where I work and I've been dealing with recycling centres for 20 odd years. Yeah, unfortunately, you do get some of those behaviours. But the times I've been down to the Sorell one, it seems like, they get it pretty clean. But how to get in locations where the ongoing maintenance, it's probably something that the refund schemes acknowledge, that they've got to be quite conscious of that. But I haven't had any direct feedback, it's only with my own observations.
And the complex clean it up, but I saw photos on social media that was rather disgusting, actually.
There are cleaners, because I have been there when the cleaners have been actually at the site, cleaning the machine, cleaning around the machine, so they do. They said to me that they go there every day.
It was mainly, they were dumping them on the trolley bay. Big boxes, and they come and just wanted to put them somewhere, so that's where they put them.
If it's people that are large commercial users, that's more likely to get better in the future, because they're going to establish, I think, a somewhere a depot, so that those depots will take higher volumes.
Oh, that's good to hear. Thank you.
Any further questions?
I think that through the chair was the Regional Development Australia report, just noting that, I can't remember which page that's mentioned on, just noting the interesting outcome that the economists, the report and the economist recommendation deals with well-being as being the primary focus, the primary driver of economic growth, whereas we've tended to think about it the other way around. And that's interesting to see in such a comprehensive report and recommendations to the government and all levels of government. So something to follow up on, perhaps for Serta as well. And there was one more thing. But I can't recall, that was fine. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further questions? In which case, put it to the vote. All those in favour? Passed unanimously, thank you. Item 12, the petition still being action, the current status is, I presume, was right. It was without ever looking. So we can move on to petitions received. 13.1, the petition to restore and revegetate the platypus habitat at Dodgers Ferry. The recommendation is that in accordance with section 58.2 of the Local Government Act, the council receives the attached petition signed by 138 valid signatories to take action immediately to restore and revegetate the platypus habitat. I think I can paraphrase that down a bit. I think we've all read it. Can I have a mover and a seconder for this motion, please? Councillor Crusader, Councillor Reid, thank you. Are there any questions? Councillor Crusader.
Thank you. A question for, potentially for, the general manager, Mr. Higgins. I read here that more, investigations needed to provide a response to this. So, what is it, what are the implications of this petition for council and in the land that it's being, talked about here?
Through the chairman, there's a period of time, not a long period of time, where we now need to, this first step is to effectively accept the petition formally, and then we'll do a considered response. So I've had preliminary discussions with DBAS, our NRM facilitator, and some Devo staff, just trying to find out roughly when these works were done and where exactly, but I haven't had any, there's been no sort of further detailed work done yet. I've noted a very brief report there just that DBAS has commenced the DNA testing of 3 sites. We haven't got the results yet, but now I just need to get some facts as to when these works reportedly occurred. And
So is this in, council land, not in the area that's managed by, Sorell?
no, this is the
This is all in council land?
council land, says the top entrance to the rec reserve, to the football ground, if you like. There's an area behind that large hard stand area that they're referring to, which I think might be some decades old that was done, potentially. And the other site, I think, is closer to so between the skate park and the main road, Old Forza Road. But yeah, I need to do some inquiring about what was done and when it was done.
Thank you.
General Manager, interesting to qualify that in fact DNA testing can reveal the presence without actually having to physically count them to see.
So that's what we've been told.
Well, that's clear.
I mean, the site, just for clarity, the sites tested were the waterway that runs between O'Connors and the school, which is in the vicinity of where the platypus was found. And then the waterway that exits, that goes through the northern half of the rec reserve and exits at the bottom of Ranton Road. And the third one was China Creek, the 3 sites chosen.
Any further questions? In which case, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Unanimous. Moving on to 14, land use planning. The Deputy Mayor advised, in accordance with the provisions of Part 2, Regulation 25 of the Local Government Meeting Procedures Regulations 2015, the intention of the Council to act as a planning authority pursuant to the Land Use Planning and Approvals Act 1993. As we noted, in accordance with Regulation 25, the Council will act as a planning authority in respect to those matters appearing under item 14 on this agenda, inclusive of any supplementary items. And item 14 is that the recommendation of the Sorell Planning Authority at the SPA meeting of the 3rd of June 2025 be noted. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Nichols and Councillor Larkins. Any discussion? We just put that. Just put it. Those in favour? Moving on to 15, which is a matter of governance. The next item on the agenda relates to the Local Government Association of Tasmania, LEGAT, elections. We need to decide the council's preferred candidate for each of the 3 positions on the ballot paper. I'll call for a nomination from each position in turn, but I won't, because that's going to take all night. So, and I need to move for a second, and we're going to consider this. And then we'll abbreviate it. Thank you, Councillor Larkins and Councillor Reid. So what we need to determine here is how we determine this.
Through you, Mayor, Chair. I would like to put forward a motion to propose for President Mick Tucker for Southern Electric District, population 20,000 or more. Paula Reid, thank you. And Southern Electoral District, population 20,000 or less, Lee Gray.
Now, are there any further propositions on that recommendation? In which case, we could simply put that now, couldn't we? Those in favour? And it's unanimous. Moving on to disposal of public land, I think, is that right? It's community implications that are not implied. Disposal of public land, certificate of title, volume 164990, folio 1, part of 47 Cole Street, Sorell, lot 2 of SA 2020-2021. The recommendation is that the council resolve to dispose of the public land described in certificate of title volume 164990, folio 1, part of 47 Cole Street, lot 2. We acknowledge that this does not constitute in any way a decision to sell the land or to any particular purchase, and reserves the right not to sell the land at all, but authorise the General Manager to actively pursue opportunities to give effect to Resolution Part 2 above for the sale of the land, and require that any proposal to purchase the land be reported to the Council for due consideration. So we're really just voting for permission. And you move that, Councillor Larkin, and do I and Councillor Nichols. Is there any discussion on this? In which case I put the motion. No, sorry, you missed discussion.
Well, I just wanted to say the important part in that is in condition 2, I feel that that council in here, which I'm pleased about, reserves the right not to sell the land. So I just wanted to make that comment.
Any further comments? Councillor Reid.
Likewise, and to clarify, at some point in the report, it refers to taking a pause. So this is, perhaps, through the chair, perhaps if you could explain what that actually means.
Yeah, through the chair, so it's a bit of a two-step recommendation, if you like. It's to conclude the statutory notification period, first and foremost, which is that we received a submission that I don't consider to be an objection, because it was just from a real estate agency offering to list the land for us if you want to sell it. So it wasn't exactly the intent of what the objection period is for. And the second part is that it enables council now at the right time, which will be further discussion between myself and the councillors as to do we want to proceed, how do we want to proceed, and when. So it's not locking council into anything. It's just we've all done this, I guess, the preliminary steps to enable us to now take some action, whatever we may wish to do with that.
And in the fullness of time, will come back before us.
Oh, it's very clear that there's no decision can be made to dispose or to agree to dispose without being a decision to council. But relevant to what Councillor Reid asked, it's around given what's evolved since the federal election with the urgent care clinic, which was sort of the original trigger to get this process sorted out or recommenced. We've now got an active DA lodged for that specific use, an associated pharmacy at Station Lane. So in a sense, the urgency for council to have its own option, if the private sector wasn't going to do that, is reduced, which is why we've got the opportunity to hit pause, if you like, and then have further discussion around it. What we may wish to do with the land, what method we may wish to use if we are going to dispose of it, what conditions. So it's, to me, there's more than enough safeguards in there that nothing can happen without council agreeing prior to it.
Thank you.
Any further issues on that? Which case I put the motion. Those in favour? It appears to be unanimous. Moving on to 15.3, the adoption of the annual plan 2025 to 2026. The recommendation is that in accordance with section 71 of the Local Government Act 1993, Council resolves to adopt the annual plan for the 2025-2026 financial year. I have a mover and seconder, please. Councillor Nichols and Councillor Reid, thank you. Discussion? Councillor Reid.
Through the chair, I would firstly like to commend everyone who's been involved in the process of putting the plan together and presenting it. It feels like it's clarified and does what an annual report's supposed to do, in that it clarifies our priorities and the order of things for the coming year. So from a governance point of view, it feels like it's the right, come together well, and thank you also to Joe and others who have presented such an attractive document, easy to read, looks great, and makes it easier to work with. Other than that, I'm happy to support the plan as presented.
That's a point well made, Councillor. As someone who's come in from an entirely different area of life, reporting has done, so I had no idea what a good job local councils can do in particular areas. That's always worth thinking about. So, if there's no other questions on that, those in favour? And it's unanimous. Fiddle with my paper. Page 89. 89, yeah. It's very well set out for me. Yeah, right, yeah.
What page number is the difference?
So yeah, that's right. There's an awful lot of paper in this business. 17 is the Community Grants Program. The recommendation is that the Council approve a grant application to the Penga Recreation Association under the 2024-2025 Community Grants Program as per the following report. And we all remember our hearty discussion on this matter, don't we? Because it was about a dummy. Can I have a mover and a seconder for the motion, please? A laughing Councillor Larkins and Councillor Turinius, thank you. Do we want to have further discussion on this vital matter? Yes, good. Councillor Reid, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I would just like to recall, support this, having submitted similar grants applications myself in the past, over many years, for the Dodgesbury Junior Soccer Club. So I can empathise with them, and I'm glad we're going here.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further discussion? Then I put the motion. Those in favour? Unanimous. 18, the onerous matter of finance. The executive summary of the financial report for May 2025. Recommendation that the executive summary financial report May 25 year to date be received and noted by the council, Councillor Larkins and Councillor Reid. Thank you. Any questions, discussion? If there's no further discussion, sorry.
If I may, I sometimes feel like I repeat myself with this, but it's worth repeating in that, again, commend all of the work that goes into preparing our reports and giving us such confidence in them. And that's echoed by the audit panel, which is a very fortunate position for us to be in. So, thank you.
We'll put the motion. Those in favour? Passed unanimously. Now moving down through codes paper to 18. 2024-2025 capital budget adjustments. Recommendation is that the council resolve pursuant to section 82 of the Local Government Act 1993 to accept and adopt the below adjustments to the 2024-2025 capital budget estimates. Can I have a mover and a second? Councillor Terenius and Councillor Larkin. Thank you. Are there any questions, comments, or debate on this item? If there's no discussion, I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Oh, sorry. Looking through the wrong lens again.
Is it item 20.1?
18.2.
Oh,
18.
sorry.
We'll go ahead and put the motion. Unanimous. I think we're coming up to the foreshadowed motion. No, 19, planning. No items. 20.1, Primrose Beach, water quality investigation. There's a lot of material here, but I think it's listed behind me, isn't it? Rather than take your time reading the whole thing, can I have a mover and a seconder for the motion, please? Councillor Terenius and Councillor Nichols, thank you. Any questions or comments? Councillor Reid.
To the Chair, once again, I'd like to commend the staff involved in all of the work that's gone into preparing this report and presenting it. It's been a matter of conjecture and debate and comment and all sorts of things for a very long time. And it's terrific to see it all brought together in comprehensive report. So I'm very grateful for that. And an important part of it, as the motion mentions, is the community engagement with residents. We've seen a taste of that through the CERP project and consultation on those stormwater projects recently, which although they might not be large numbers of people attending, those that do are highly engaged, and it's a really important opportunity to, again, work through complex issues, really, that have a number of, it's something where there's a lot of backstory, there's a lot of varied perceptions about what is and isn't happening, and so this work, the research, the engagement's really important. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Reid. Any Councillor Crusader?
Thank you. I have a question whether to the General Manager, Mr. Higgins, or it is about the non-conclusive link could be established. So again, there is all this investigation, but there's more to be done. And so what is moving forward, because they're still not suitable for swimming certain areas.
Yeah, through the chair, I'm going to skillfully ask Greg, who's a subject matter expert in this, to answer that.
Thank you, Chair. I was expecting to receive your handle on that one. In part, the answer to your question lies in the second report about the open recreational water quality. So in that report, it's actually saying after doing all the statistical analysis on the water quality at Primrose Beach, the classification would change. The procurement classification, it was good water quality, then it was temporarily recommended for no swimming. Now the classification will change to fair water quality, which is in accordance with the Tasmanian Recreational Water Quality Guidelines. And fair sort of means, look, it recognises the fact that you might get fluctuations in water quality for a range of reasons, but it doesn't. But the recommendation won't be to not swim. The reasoning for that, which is more the second report, was being cautious because there was a number of high results that occurred and they weren't correlated to any specific event. Sometimes when you get high rainfall and you expect to get a reduction in water quality, and then when the rainfall stops, and that's sort of what happened when we got a high result in mid-December, and there were two in a row that were high, so the recommendation was not to swim. Then, and there was really high rainfall in early December, so the expectation was that water quality would improve. So then when it did, that residents were advised that it was okay, suitable swimming. But then when it occurred again in mid-January, that's when this investigation sort of started, because there wasn't any obvious reason for why you would get such high results. There were other, as it turned out, when we talked to do an estuary program, that GAP were very helpful in giving us advice that they were also noticing through the Derwent high results for no other obvious reasons. So it wasn't just in Primrose Sands, but and there were other high results at other beaches, but Primrose, and the reason why we sample at that location at Primrose Sands is because it's always historically been that concern of all the on-site systems and all the seepage that runs down there. Just this has been the first year where we had quite a number of high results. So in the report, we sort of explained that with the assistance of the estuary program, they were trialling a type of test that involved a bacteria that's specific to humans. So the belief was that if, and it hadn't really been trialled extensively for recreational waters, if we could test any human-specific fecal bacteria in the seepage and then also find it in the beach, you could pretty conclusively say that the high results that we're getting for that other type of bacteria that we test for Enterococcus, which isn't specific to humans, it's only specific to warm-blooded animals. So that's where there's investigations about birds and other sources come into it, because you might be getting a high result, but it may not be human specific, and that's where this bacteria would give you a lot more confidence. So whilst in the report I said it's not a conclusive link, because to be conclusive, you would want to show that direct relationship. It's not saying it's not, because it's the most likely source, but there are other things, sediments and other things that can, and tide and wave action that can stir up, because Enterococcus you can find in sediments and also find it being retained in kelp or seagrass or something like that and being released. So there's lots of stuff, and you could study it, you can do a PhD on it to try to link it in. But the reality is that's what we believe that in the absence of any other obvious source, we have to focus in on the possibility that the water quality is likely associated with seepage that's being affected by on-site systems, because there isn't any other reasonable sort of source for where it might be coming from. We can't conclusively say that that's absolutely what it is. So that's the context of it.
Thank you.
Thank you for that enlightenment. Councillor Torrenius, I know you had.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I think on page 138, the second paragraph from the bottom, is probably rather important, as sort of indicates that council should look for ways of helping residents in the situation where the septic tanks need to be replaced. What's the chance of that?
Yeah, I honestly don't know, Councillor Strings. I suspect a mean-hearted politician will say it's your own problem. And certainly, as Greg's pointed out, Taswater, they've got a particular approach to servicing previously unserviced areas, and it's quite involved. And I think the likelihood of success of whether it's Lewisham or Dodgers or Carlton or Primrose, wishing to pursue that course, I suspect the likelihood is low because the costs are low. But in terms of we've had very little success to date, obviously, that either federal or state government would either support servicing or individual property assistance. So I can inquire. I haven't done so for quite a while, but I shouldn't assume that I've got a reasonable thought of what the response will be.
I share your thoughts. Yeah,
I don't know.
I think it would open a can of worms, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Chair, if I may elaborate further, I've talked with Shane, who's probably a lot more involved in seeking grants than I usually am, and he said a lot of the grants aren't usually structured around support for these kind of initiatives. So we're going, as I say, this is not something that is going to get resolved quickly. Soon, whether it be in the next or following council meeting, the draft plan for Southern Beaches on-site wastewater, on-site stormwater will be presented. We're reviewing that now, but as part of that, we've sort of engaged with Taswater, and Taswater have been pretty definitive with us about where the Southern Beaches sits in relation to priorities, and it's a long way in the future. It's in the planning, but there's no. So for the purposes of these sort of issues, we can't be relying on Taswater. We would have to look, and that's what I mean, we have to engage with the community and really get an understanding from the community really what they want. Because there are ways that you can progressively, which we try to take the opportunity at the development application stage where people are redeveloping properties. A lot of the properties in that immediate catchment are quite, the septics are quite old, so that they're naturally coming towards the end of their life anyway. So you tend to fix them up when they fail, that they have to meet more contemporary standards. But some of them are pretty challenging because they're small blocks, as you can see, you know that area, and there's not a lot of room left. And it's part of the other project with the, correct me if I get the wrong acronym, the CEM, what's it?
CERE.
And then some of the work, one of the projects there is that out there in Carlton Road, and looking with the engineers about, because we've got to be pretty careful that we don't pick up wastewater in trying to improve stormwater, and there are all the challenges that we have to provide a better pathway for getting contaminants into the water.
Any further questions or discussion on this issue? In which case, the motion, those in favour, is to be unanimous. And closely related to this discussion, in fact, exactly material to it, is 20.2, Recreational Water Quality Monitoring Report 2024 to 25. The recommendation is that the Recreational Water Quality Monitoring Report attached in Appendix 1 be received, and Council resolves to agree to continue monitoring at the existing 7 sites and include 2 new sites at Primrose Beach in the 2025 to 26 monitoring program. Can I have a mover and a second? Councillor Crusader, Councillor Reid, thank you. Discussion, please.
Just a comment, I think Greg covered it beautifully, he did, so thank you, Greg.
The only point I'd make is that when I first came here, I did a rough sum and checked it with a few other authorities. I couldn't find anywhere in Australia where 7,000 or 8,000 people living in more or less that contiguous suburban area didn't have deep sewerage. But that's beyond our remit. This is a Commonwealth and a state government. Maybe as councillors move into state government, something might be done. Any further discussion? Councillor Rick.
Thank you. I would just like to note that this is likely to be welcomed by the community because since the primary centre's experience in particular here, but recalling the Blue Lagoon flooding in 2020, etc., and the work that's been done there, the capacity to provide data, monitoring data has always been an important part of the conversation, and so it's great to see this happening.
Could I just
Councillor
ask a
Perez,
question?
yes.
Jones Parade, is that on the monitoring list, or do we know the results of that already?
Chair, if I answer that question, in the dim dark past when I had hair, we used to sample at Jones's Bay, but given the fact of the issues with the outfall that's there, a sign was erected recommending no swimming. So because we only sample primary contact recreational sites, and because that's not recognised as a primary contact recreational site, we don't do any monitoring there. But obviously, once that situation changes, which hopefully it will in the not too distant future, we might reconsider that. But the other aspect with Jones's Bay is it's very shallow, so it's more of a wading area than swimming. You'd have to go quite a way out. Actually, we used to sample at Oakon's Beach, and for the same reason we stopped because it wasn't really a swimming beach. It was only deep enough when you went right out to the channel. So the prioritisation is more towards those common areas where primary contact recreation occurs, and we added areas like Connors Marsh and the beach below McKinley Street and Newbow Point are more popular areas for swimming than those sites.
I did report some time ago that I saw a family in Jones Bay walking. You said it's shallow, but they were definitely walking out.
This was a family with no sense of smell.
Obviously, they may not have been able to read the sign, but yeah, it was a bit concerning.
Any further discussion? Can I put the motion? Which is unanimous. Moving on to 21. What we set up for an answer to see that one. No item. 22. Facilities and Recreation. 2022.1. The Natural Resource Management NRM strategy for 2035 for Sorell Municipality. Looking at the future, obviously. Recommendation that Council resolve to A, endorse the Natural Resources Management NRM strategy, and B, allocate appropriate staged resources to implement that strategy. I have a mover, Councillor Nichols and Councillor Crusader. Thank you. Discussion. Councillor Reid.
Thank you. As chair of the NRM Environment Advisory Group, I'm extremely pleased to see this come to council and commend everyone involved in developing the strategy and providing input to it. It's been a long process. Started almost as soon as NRM facilitator Diggs Panther joined us. He started working on the strategy, and it's gone through a number of stages, had a lot of fantastic input from the members, the volunteer members of the NRM advisory group, and at least two rounds of community consultations and fantastic conversations at the sessions that were held in recent weeks. It's come together into what I believe is a very comprehensive report, in that it does what a strategy, an effective strategy does. It sets the context, sets clear strategies, and then the actions that need to be followed from them. So it sets us up now to get on with the job. Having said that, it's also worth noting that in the time that this strategy's been evolving, there's a lot of significant work that's already happened and is happening. In particular, the work on major stormwater upgrades, the award-winning CAP management program, the increasing community engagement around natural assets, and a greater engagement with council staff as well, in places like Flora Park. So we're seeing the strategy in action before it's already happening in many ways. So thank you to everyone involved.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Crusader.
Thank you. A question for Mr. Higgins, General Manager, please. In the recommendation, there's the allocate the appropriate stage resources to implement the strategy. Would you be so kind to comment on that?
Through the chair, it's as simple as adopting the strategy or endorsing and adopting it is one component, but there's certainly inherent throughout the strategy a requirement for council to invest in various activities or work. So I guess it's more the point of part B is that council be aware that in endorsing the strategy, there's a financial contribution council needs to make to get the results from it. So that's something that we'll be working through with DIVAS and the NRM advisory group throughout. Just case in point, just recently, the last week, was reviewing for DIVAS the Blue Lagoon weed management plan and another document, I can't remember what it was now, which was, clearly had financial implications for council. So it's not much point handing out this part if we're not going to make the provision necessary to actually get some results.
Following, thank you. Follow-up to that question is that we're starting a new financial year just now, and so in the review of this strategy or the adopting this strategy comes right when we have been reviewing the new financial year's budget, and so how does that sit with the planning of activating this strategy and using the budget?
Through the chair, it's something that DIVAS, who sort of has carriage of the NRM cost centre, has been, he certainly put submissions into the budget process more in the operating budget rather than the capital budget. We're obviously on the hook with the CERMP project for a lot of expenditure on stormwater outfalls throughout Southern Beaches, which has been a really positive project. I'd need to, I'm trying to do it right second, I'd need to revisit the NRM cost centre to see what particular items we included that dealt with NRM matters in particular, which will be put into council next week. There's, in terms of just as the contractor budget proposed for next year is around $140,000 worth. I mean, the cost centre for NRM is around $260,000 cost centre, which is inclusive of salaries and other elements. But there's a range of works proposing to do with Oh, there's a few things around plantation reserves, the staged bungie removal in Blue Lagoon, some signage, the weed management plan, and also the implementation of that as a staged approach. And obviously the work that is coordinating through some volunteer groups as well. So at this stage, they're the key things that are in the cost centre for next year.
Thank you.
Councillor Reid.
If I may add to that, expand on the strategy side of that, through our inputs to the annual plan, there was an eye to the NRM strategy and some of the headline items, I suppose, so including the beginning the transition to electric vehicles, which relates to the climate action strategy, the ongoing work around the things that I mentioned before, cat management, the stormwater, there's the rivers to wetlands project, which is the rehabilitation program. And it's worth noting that just those two, the stormwater, CRMP stormwater, and which is 25, I think, is it? 25 outlets, or is it? Yeah, I think so.
They'll be close to that. Up this financial year coming up, we're doing
14, 15,
So,
yes. So there's a lot of work that's facilitated through NRM, but the operations include stormwater and other parts of the council. Just those two projects, CRMP and the rivers to wetlands, have attracted over $3 million of grant funding in the last 3 years. So, and that will roll forward too. It's bringing in significant revenue, significant resources as well.
Further discussion? Well, the motion was to endorse the NRM strategy and to allocate appropriate resources to implement it. Those in favour? Passed unanimously. Moving on to item 23, which is that ever popular segment, questions from the public. But before the entertainment, I have to read. In accordance with Regulation 31 of the Local Government Meeting Procedures, Regulations 2015, Council will conduct a public question time. At each meeting, the Deputy Mayor will invite those members of the public present to ask questions. When requested, please stand up and state clearly your name and address. This time is allocated for questions from the public. Questions to be kept brief and specific to the topic to which they relate. Members of the public are reminded that questions and any answers to such questions are not to be debated. Questions may be submitted to Council in writing at least 7 days before an ordinary Council meeting. Before we move into public question time, I'd like to note a response to a question taken on notice at a previous meeting from Mr. Bob Brakey. The response has been provided and is available in the meeting agenda under the public question time section. We now move to public questions. Are there any questions from members of the public tonight?
You were talking about, Sharon Connery.
You're not listening.
Why wasn't I listening?
Because you have to stand up and clearly state your name.
I am. That's what I looked for. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question for Stevens, if that's all right. We were talking about recent land valuations, and I was one of the lucky ones, well, you said everyone, so, but I found land that is just completely undeveloped. It's farmland. It got, and you might be able to help me with this, and I have a question when rates in. Land value is like $200,000, and then the capital value on that land is $200,000 too. It's only got fences on it, that's all, and pasture.
Is that the same thing? How do you value your rates on that? Does it just go on the total of 400,000, or do you add, or 200,000, do you add the 200,000 together and get 400, or how does it work?
No, through the chair. So we calculate our rates based on the AAV, which is the assessed annual value, which is the Valuer General's professional view on the rental income the property would generate. So that's the metric we use for generating our rates. So we set an amount of rate revenue we need to run our operations, and then our rate system works out how much each property contributes to get to that figure. So it's a proportional thing where the more value your property is, generally the higher the contribution you make. So yeah, land value is literally, as the name suggests, just land only. Capital value is the land plus any improvements, buildings, houses, etc. And the AAV is the theoretical rental value of that property per annum.
So in this case, I've got here assessed annual value, that's what your AAV. So that's 16,000, so my rates on this vacant land is determined on that 16,000, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so that's the figure that's used to generate the contribution for that property.
I'm just curious. I have another question too. The Strilis, the government wants to develop all those houses and areas and the Sorell thing. If the council had a problem with that, that the government forced you to, and you've already stated you're not happy about the number of houses, the lack of infrastructure in the area. I look at this government and it's autocratic, it does what it wants. If they forced you to do something that was against council regulations and against the benefit of the community, would Legat stand up and, for instance, take the government to court over such an issue, or would the council just bow down and bow to the government, which is what seems to be happening everywhere now? I'm just really concerned about this issue.
Yeah, through the chair. So the Sorell it's a horrible acronym. It's the Southern Tasmania Regional Land Strategy, and what the government has recently done is sort of run their own sort of fast track process to change one component in that strategy, which is the urban growth boundary. The councils collectively were going through a process doing that fairly methodically, and the government wanted to do it a bit more quickly. So as it relates to Sorell, what they actually ended up changing was consistent with what we've been proposing anyway. The difference of opinion is that government thinks that there's more dwelling yield in the area that we've identified than what we do. So it's really just a matter of opinion. There's nothing final about the fact that they've got a different view on how many houses that could theoretically be put in those areas, those identified areas. Because we have a broader master planning approach to other aspects that need to go in those areas with open space or education facilities, etc. So what they put in the press was a really coarse approach to this is the area that's been identified. In theory, you can fit X number of dwellings in there, not considering other uses, not considering open space, not considering land required for roads, etc. So I'm not too concerned about that. And the other side of it, we're in the infrastructure. That's something we've been working on for 10 years with the infrastructure providers to make sure that it's done at the right scale and at the right time, and that those who require it pay the contribution accordingly. So it's a very slow burn, this process. I don't see a need at this stage, barring next month, I don't see a need at this stage for this council to do anything formal with government, because what they've done through this review is really just to effectively just to speed up a process that was otherwise going to occur anyway, as it relates to Sorell.
But Legat, if there were major concerns for the community and councils, do you hold the opinion that Legat would intervene and take the government to task?
Or would
Right, so
the
through the
gap
chair,
just
so-
bow down?
Well, there's 100 different ways to answer that question depending on the specifics of what you're asking. So, yeah, they've only dealt with the strategy that applies to southern Tasmania, and there's only a small number of councils where they've changed their regrowth boundary. And the only other council area that they proposed changes that council didn't necessarily want themselves was Clarence. So it's a matter for Clarence to sort out. But in terms of the LJT acting on behalf of a conglomerate of councils in a legal sense, I can't see that happening.
Thank you.
Any further questions?
Bob Brady, Dunalley. In response to the questions taken at the previous meeting on notice from me, Council's forward capital project for new and upgraded assets in Dunalley. These projects form a part of the revised long-term financial plan to be incorporated into Council's financial management strategy. How long a term are you talking about? And on the position of pathways, why will council not apply for government active transport grants for cycle pathways? And just another one, on the marina, what is happening with the marina project in Dunalley? It's been talked about since 2013 with great excitement when it first was mooted, but it seems to have dissipated and fallen by the wayside.
Through the chair, I'll try and get them in the right order. So the projects that we're nominating in the future, certainly there's none proposed for next financial year from that list that I've included in the response.
That's next financial year, not this financial.
The ones that
It's just,
So 25, 26 is none of these projects
yeah,
proposed.
no,
at this
I
stage.
understand that.
But at this stage, we're hoping to pursue the first one being the Arthur Highway one, the year after, I think 26, 27. I have been in contact with state growth around the possibility for that $200 million of funding from the federal government for the Arthur Highway, for a range of projects on the Arthur Highway, whether this one could be incorporated in it. So instead of being a gravel pathway, it becomes concrete, so it's upgraded. They're still waiting to find out from the federal government how and when those funds will be made available and what will be eligible for those funds to be used for. And I was only talking to the Deputy Secretary of the Department yesterday about that, so we're still waiting to hear from the federal government. The other projects listed there, we review each year when we set the capital budget, review the timing of when certain projects will occur. So the others are sort of years after 26, 27. So some were the following year and others the year after. So we just have to, I guess, balance off across the whole municipality which capital projects we do in what order so that we can actually get delivered. The Denali, I apologise for I missed some of the questions, but the Denali Marina project has been very frustrating for us too. It's fundamentally come down to the proponents and the state government not being able to reach agreement or taking a very long time to reach agreement on the leasing arrangements for the Crown land and the Crown of the seabed and the foreshore. It has been painful. So the Office of the Coordinator General is trying to help as well because it's between Parks and Crown Solicitor. That's where it's just taking a very, very long time. We tried for a couple of years and we didn't really make great progress. We've actually stepped out of that process and it's now just between the state and the proponent because it's state land that is what needs to get finalised in order for them to make decisions to actually progress the project. But it's been really, really frustrating. It's taken a long time to get not very far.
just one other thing. Could I be provided with the costing of the upper highway one, if possible? Because with the election in the air, maybe if somebody, me or anyone else, asks some of the politicians for state funding, maybe we could probably get a little bit of money that way for the council to do this football. Because 1 point something million for the white beef one was an election commitment made by the Liberal government in the last election, out of that $4 million that they received from state government and active transport federally.
Yeah, but Rob, through the chair, we're actually this week revising our sort of advocacy doc that we send out with each election, whether it's federal or state. So we actually, given the situation with the state finances, we'll be putting more smaller projects in than the larger ones. So, yeah, there's consistent with what we said before. There's no reason why we wouldn't put this in as a opportunity for them to co-fund, which would maybe result in a better quality. So rather than gravel, let's concrete.
Yes.
So we can do that. But at this stage, as I said before, all we've got is we don't have a design. It's just an indicative unit rate, as if it's there's no encumbrances to install, whereas we know there's some drainage issues and driveways, and it's not super flat all the way. So, and I can tell you separately what our very basic unit rate cost estimate is for gravel or concrete.
Yeah, if you can give me that later.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, the 728 signature petition that was presented in Parliament was asking for funding on behalf of the council and assistance by state growth to help council build this pathway. I don't think the answer that was given by the infrastructure minister was very satisfactory. I think it was very poor. It was just basically quoting the gravel footpath that you had in the 10-year plan. And that's all it was quoting. Although we did say that there was funding available through the active transport grants. 1, state government active transport, 2, the federal government's active transport. So
yeah, we put in for those grants a while back for different projects, and we didn't get anything approved.
yeah, but you still got to keep trying.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any further questions?
Kathy Manucci at Primrose Sands. I've got a few questions, so can I load them up one at a time? Is that possible?
Certainly.
Okay, so my first one is about the actual report to do with the storage or septic or the problem down at Primrose Sands Beach. I thank Greg for his report and the team that works on that. I just would like some clarification around where we're heading with this. I know that Councillor Cornelius actually asked where we're going with this, but in the report here it says information on page 138, information obtained from this investigation should be sent to TasWater. The question is, will the council be submitting something to TasWater, even though you acknowledge that they probably don't want anything to do with it because they're not going to be working in the area?
If I may answer that one, Chair. My intention would be, we have pretty regular dialogue with TasWater over a number of projects. As I alluded to, the issue with water quality at Primrose Sands sort of come up at the same time as we're currently engaged with consultants to do work on on-site wastewater stormwater plans for the southern beaches.
Yep.
So they had already been looking at that area around Primrose Sands, and then the water quality issue sort of came up. So we are providing those updates, and we will once, but obviously the first thing was to put the report and information to council and the community before going to TasWater. So it'd be my intention to give them an update, just that we were being quite realistic, because as part of that on-site wastewater stormwater plan, we specifically asked TasWater about, well, what do you see the future for providing water and sewage in the southern beaches? And it was more along the lines of in their 50-year planning.
Yeah.
And the reason for asking that question was that how we decide, and our consultants look at the sustainability of on-site wastewater and stormwater in the southern beaches is dependent upon what Taswater's plans are.
Yep.
You know, we were expecting the answer they gave us, but they had to tell us that.
Yep.
So then we could start to have that, and that's why, you know, when you do get these issues of, you know, of wastewater, I suppose I must reiterate, when we surveyed the area, there's not a wide-scale problem of, you know, septics failing and overflowing sewage, just that my belief is that, and this is why I suppose in this report we want some people who have a few more skills in groundwater geology than I do, but my belief is that a lot of that area around the bluff, I've seen it for 30 odd years. How it gets, there's a lot of water that seeps out of there all the time.
Yeah.
Just that when the soil's quite wet and you're putting more water from septics, you know, into the soil and the soil's wet, it's not actually acting to treat the water.
There's a filter.
So the filter's effectively less effective because it's wet, so it's leaching more into the groundwater and that's seeping out. That's the purpose of those recommendations, is to look at, you know, getting some more advice about that. But that's, you know, the $64,000 or more expensive than that these days.
So sorry.
Yeah.
So basically, Taswater have got no jurisdiction because they are not running any sort of program or, you know, like septic in our area. So basically, and due respect here for everyone, so that I get it right. So basically, it's all the responsibilities pretty much of each individual landowner, because the council aren't looking at the overall. I mean, you're looking at it, but the thing is, you probably can't do anything. So I suppose, you know, I kind of, and I'm, you know, with due respect here, I don't know how to kind of say it properly, so I'll probably say it kind of bluntly, but I'm not meaning to be blunt. But basically, you know, the report seems to indicate that there are 3 areas where water's flowing through quite, or seeking points, and that's evident on page 142. Your page 143 clearly indicates, if I'm reading it correctly, I can't, it's a bit blurry, but that you've got E. coli there, and you've identified that and levels in certain areas of 2 of those areas, and you've also identified them at the boat ramp. Page 144 clearly states or shows that you've got a land prone to flooding, and if I'm looking at the ledger on the right hand side, that means that the flooding level is quite low. Is that correct?
Yeah, the water's not very deep when it floods because it's on a slope.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I suppose I'm trying to look at it sort of objectively and try to think, and I know that water flows wherever, you know, you can't necessarily capture, but if this diagram on 144 seems to indicate that there seems to be a clear line of where it's running down to the beach, and that seems to be probably pretty much in the area that's causing the major issue. Is there any way of cutting some of that flow off and sending that through? You know, at Primrose we have got very large dish gutters on either side of the road. You know, the road was put in probably, you know, because the road was actually improved. You know, we had a dirt road, and now we've got a very high road with very high dish gutters. Is there any way of actually sending some of this water instead of down to the beach, you know, through kind of pipes, you know, like even kind of packed out pipes with holes in them?
I know exactly the point you're making. We were having this discussion only last week in relation to the CRENP project, which is the upgrade of that stormwater outfall that runs down next to 27 Colin Bluff Road.
Yeah, because there's one that runs across the road too, and we're on Colin Bluff at the lower end, just outside of this zone, at the you know, and to the right hand side, and basically.
If you give me 1 second, I'll just answer your question initially. So the point you make is when I was discussing with the consultant that's doing that work, in that where it's possible, you're better off to try to redirect water and keep the blocks as dry as you can.
Yep, exactly.
So it reduces the leaching. The theory of that's fine. The practicality of how you do it is not quite as easy. So as part of that project, they're looking at ways that maybe some of that water could be funneled out. But as I also pointed out, you have to be so careful that in redirecting water, you don't pick up more wastewater and just more conveniently shoot it straight out of the stormwater from what's there now. So there is that, pond, for want of a better word.
Yep.
In, which Seagull, was it?
Yeah,
I think Seagull, yeah. So that's an area where that connects down into the stormwater system, and that sort of lines up with where that inundation pathway is.
Yeah.
So some of those roadside drains, they're looking, there's a possibility that you could do a little bit better stormwater treatment on site before it comes out. But it's, to be blunt, it's challenging in areas where you've got such a high density of on-site systems.
Yeah.
You know, and where you do have drainage issues, and that's why my belief, you know, in the foreseeable future, you know, as the opportunities arise to, you know, work with owners to upgrade their old septics to aerated systems, that will improve the situation.
Yeah.
It's not a guarantee it fixes everything. I mean, you also said about Taswater. Well, Taswater are the authority that provides water and sewerage. Taswater's got lots of other priorities across the state as well.
Yeah.
I mean, the southern beaches would be their highest priority for where they would roll out, you know, new services in the state. The reality is that there's lots of other projects that they've got to do in the meantime. And the other big thing about the community is Taswater aren't going to have any interest in rolling out under the current legislation unless you've got, what, 70 or 80% of the people that actually want it.
It's a two-step process.
Then I suppose if you look at Primrose as a whole, it's been there for a very long time, and it is a beach area. I suppose I'm trying to kind of get some undertaking that, you know, that nothing is just, it just doesn't stop.
I'm sorry, we do appreciate what you're saying. The injunction.
Sorry, am I talking too much yet?
No, but the injunction is in contradiction now. You are straying from question into debate.
Oh, yeah, okay.
But
So,
I take your point.
I suppose I'm just trying to add a couple of solutions to the problems, because we have got a lot of land there, I know, further down the street. But another question was that, so monitoring has actually ended, so that only happens between December and April, is that correct?
We did extend the monitoring period into April. We usually, the period, we can monitor as long as we want, really, but the period that is set out in the regulations or the guidelines that council have to monitor is from the start of December through to the end of March, which is what we sort of stick to, because that's sort of recognised as the swimming season. Obviously, people still swim outside of those periods, and we will monitor further. So there's two aspects. There's the recreational monitoring, but then there's also the monitoring that we're doing of all the seepage as part of the investigation. And we're not saying that we're going to cease that monitoring. All we're saying is we want to get some further advice about if you can collect and spend a lot of money gathering data, but for what purpose?
Yep, okay. And the other one was, so in the report, the rating at the beach is being listed as poor, so that would suggest that there is an ongoing issue with the septic. Is that correct?
What happened, as I said before during the meeting, is that there's a classification that is based on a 5-year rolling analysis, and up till this season, the water quality at Primrose Beach had been good. But because of the high results that happened this year, that classification changed from good to fair. But that's the permanent classification. There was a period because of the high results where we recommended no swimming, because in the short term there was poor water quality. But once you analyse it over a 5-year period, it didn't go to the level where we have to recommend no swimming next season. It's just changed to fair.
Right.
Okay.
I've got one more question.
One brief one.
It's sort of about that. Recreational water quality monitoring report 2025. That's available. Is it possible to get a copy of that one?
That will get uploaded to the website.
All right. Okay. So that one's been completed.
It's on the attachments. It's part of the attachments are on the agenda. Yeah.
All right.
So it's on the website.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyways, just.
Name and address, please.
I'll be quick. There's still rubbish on the causeway, little white, things, whatever they're called, needs to be cleaned up. The other is that I replied to the council email to Vicky, there was a bit of a misunderstanding. There's no damage to the lighting, it's just not adequate. So for the people, the councillors who are driving home tonight, would you like to look at the lighting? It's on that side of the road. It's pretty piss poor, pardon my French, compared to the lighting on the little side roads going into Dodgers Ferry. So if the councillors would kindly check the lighting. The other one, I don't think it works. It's the solar panel turning off to the first Lewisham turn off. I mean, even when I worked and coming home late at night, it wasn't working. I did discuss it with Janet this afternoon in spite of the fact that she was poorly. And she thinks the light works, but it doesn't. So can you just check that? And I don't think I'm really going blind.
It works during the day.
It's
The light comes on during the day.
It's at night, and I forgot to check the one out here, which I complained about last time. Should I ask about the gum trees and reducing their height, or am I just bashing the head against the brick wall?
Well, both, you can if you
You won't give me an answer. Robert?
No, nothing to add from.
Should I go out and embark them? I don't want them chopped down. I just want them reduced in height, because as you know from that beautiful picture I did for you, lovely painting, work of art, it showed that the gum trees
I thought it
tower
was
over my
impressionistic.
It was real. I'm not a Picasso.
Thank you for your question.
Thank you for having this.
I think that brings the public question segment of our meeting to a close. We will be going shortly into
Secret
a
school.
closed meeting, while members of the public quietly file out of the chamber.
So quiet.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your attendance.
Thank you for having
It's always enjoyed.
us. We enjoyed it.
Thanks, Paul.
Report on fluoridation.
Why am I making